Hello YouTubers, grumpy old man here in Smitty, collecting another one of Smitty's stories, and we were just chatting between takes. There's something he was like to talk about, from his days working on the railroads, worked steam. You were a
Brakeman.
brakeman.
Yeah.
And what was the brakeman's duty?
I was, well, on freight train, it was couple and uncouple and spot freight cars on sidings. On passenger service, you help the passengers on and you help the passengers off. And
But did you actually have to do brakes to stop the train?
well, no, that was where it started. In the 1700s, when they first started doing railroads, the brakes were applied by the brakeman, and he would have two or three cars to be responsible for, and the engineer would whistle a signal for brakes, and you applied the brakes on your car, then you went to the next one and applied the brakes on it.
So when you talk about, that's the big wheel we see on the top.
Yep.
So you would turn that and that would apply the brake pads, then you'd release those.
Yep. And then, and when the train was ready to proceed, the engineer would whistle a signal for brake release, and you went to your designated cars and released the brakes.
And how did you, or did you have to signal him to say that you had completed that? If you had a problem, how would you let him know?
Well, it was a hand signal, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you could flag him down if there was an issue for whatever. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And those signals were laid out by Department of Transport.
Yeah, they had specific signs for.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And they were universal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the industry.
We use a lot of them even yet.
Yep.
Yep.
Cool. So maybe we'll do an episode on the hand signals because that's cool. I remember taking semaphore when I was in Sea Scouts.
Yeah.
So that's cool. And we did hand signals on the ski patrol. We had specific signals. We didn't depend on the radio.
Yeah.
So now you're pretty well unilingual. You can understand a little French and speak a little French.
Just a little. Yeah.
Right.
Didn't learn any French until I was started at high school, and by that time the war was on, so there was very limited French spoken because
everybody's
even though they knew they were going overseas. Yeah. Yeah, our French teacher was conscripted into the military as an interpreter. He never got out of Ottawa, really, except to come home on long weekends to Renfrew. Yeah.
Okay, so I can tell a few stories too, but did you ever get in trouble for your French or lack of French skills on the trains?
Lack of French skills, yes. I was working the train from Ottawa to Maniwaki on a weekend.
So those who don't know, Maniwaki goes into north out of Ottawa up the Gatineau River and on the Quebec side of the province of Quebec. But Ottawa's on the Ontario side. You cross the river into Hull and you go north up into the Gatineau.
Yeah. Yeah. Through Wakefield. Yeah. And they're pulling that track out too. Yep.
I lived in Alcove, which was 5 miles past Wakefield, and it was becoming a hiking trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but anyway, I was calling the station for Low,
Quebec,
yeah, and there was I guess maybe we had just left Wakefield, and there was a couple had got on the train, and we had left Wakefield because there was an operator on. It was a Saturday, and the station masters, as a rule, weren't on site on the weekends, but there was station agent on at Wakefield, and it was after we had left Wakefield. This woman had spoke to me in French, and what little bit of French I had that could still remember from high school, I don't know yet what she said to me, but I responded to her, "Je ne parle pas français, je parle anglais." And she got hostile. Her husband laughed. That didn't make it any better.
So what you were trying to say in French was that you don't speak French, you just speak English. Yeah. So,
And she told me she was going to report me. She did. She reported me to the conductor right away, quick. And she said that when she was getting off, she was going to report me to the station master. And the conductor said to me, "You better hope he's not there today. As a rule, he's not there on Saturdays."
and
Well, I was fortunate.
Mhm.
He was not. Station master was not on site, and I didn't get any reprimand because the conductor didn't report it either. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, but being bilingual wasn't a requirement of the job either, was it?
Nope. You work for CPR. I worked in the what they call the Quebec subdivision, but it was out of Smith Falls. And
Which was the hub for Eastern Ontario.
from Smith Falls to Chalk River, basically.
Yeah.
My seniority qualified me to operate from Smith Falls to Montreal on the double track, but I only ever made 3 trips to Montreal total, and one of them they shipped me to Hudson for a commuter run for 1 day from Hudson to Montreal into Montreal into Windsor Street Station. Yeah, I made 1 trip there.
Cool.
Yeah. But
So, how long were you on the railroad?
7 years.
And what happened?
CPR and CN went diesel and telecommunication at the same time, and CPR laid off 5,000 employees in one shot in one night, and I was way down on the seniority list. There was fellas that I had worked for as conductors were back on the breaking list because of the and a schoolmate of mine had been a telegraph operator for 3 years, and he was out of a job.
Because they went to telephones.
They went telecommunication, CNCP.
Right.
It wasn't even up until then. It was CN or CP.
So those who aren't aware, Canadian National Railroad, Canadian Pacific Railroad.
Yeah.
And where are those railroads now? The companies. What are we down to? Who handles passenger?
Well, it's a whole separate transportation system.
That's right.
Department of Transport handles passenger service now.
Canadian Pacific's mostly freight, and the CN mostly passenger now.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
no, CN is a big freight transportation company.
Oh, okay.
Via Rail
Okay.
is the public transit
Part of CN.
of C. Well, it operates on CN track, but Via Rail is separate.
Separate entity. Yeah.
By I think by Department of Transport Canada.
Right. Yeah. The government of Canada created it, and
Yep.
it really depended on whether you were a liberal or conservative. Whose company gets the sweeter deals on that?
Yeah.
Same thing happened with the airlines. We used to have a couple.
Yeah.
One was conservative owned, the other was liberal owned. Changes were made when somebody had a good House of Majority. Yeah. Well.
Oh yeah. When I started on the railroad in 1951, CP Air was the largest air public transit in Canada.
Yeah. And Air Canada was the competitor, but not as big. And now CP is gone, and we have Air Canada.
Air Canada took over CP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got some help from their government, and regulations changed, and ownership changed, and absolutely. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for that story, Smitty, and we're going to come up with some more.
CP is the largest transporter of crude oil in Canada at the present time.
That dirty oil out of Alberta. And who is it who owns the hotels? That's CP, isn't it? It owns the big hotels, the Chateau Laurier and the Chateau Montebello and
CP. No, CN owns. I think CN owns the Chateau Laurier.
There we go, people. You're going to have to Google that information because neither one of us remember that. I thought it was Canadian Pacific Hotels.
No, CP owns the one in Toronto.
Okay.
CP owns the.
And then I was thinking about in Banff and Lake Louise. We'll have to look that stuff up because.
Yeah. CP owns Montebello.
Okay.
That was a retreat for the big shots of.
Yeah, it's a giant log cabin hotel.
At that time, headquarters for CPR was Montreal.
Oh, okay.
And they had the Windsor Street station. Mm-hmm. CN had. Forget the name of the station. They had a name for it. It wasn't as big.
In Montreal.
In Montreal, yeah.
The Union Station.
That's
Toronto.
Union was Toronto, but it was owned by CPR.
Okay.
And the Royal York Hotel.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Was
stayed there.
CPR? Yeah.
Stayed there in high school.
Yeah. A schoolmate of mine when I was going to high school took a clerical course in high school, and when he graduated, he had a job at the Royal York as a page. Yep.
Cool.
And he retired from there after 35 years of service with CPR.
Oh, and back to service. We talked about when you worked for the highways. How many years of service do you have?
I had 32 years with the Ontario Department of Highways.
Used to be, they call it the DHO now. It's the Ministry of Transportation.
Yeah.
But I remember your coveralls had the DHO on the back, and then you changed, and I think the color changed too.
Yeah. It went.
They were white.
Yeah.
I remember you had white ones.
Wound up. Yeah. When I was working with the paint crew, we all had white coveralls.
Okay.
And by that time it was Ministry of Transportation.
Yes.
MTC. MTC. Yeah.
Ministry
Mighty Tough Cowboy.
Mighty Tough Cowboy. Well, there you go. Yeah, I remember when it changed because they had a yard in Cumberland, a small little depot.
Yeah.
Which was mostly used for storage, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, they moved it up to Navan Road.
Right.
Yeah, where the present site is now. The Department of Highways. Yeah.
Yeah. Now the city of Ottawa's taking that over when the province downloaded.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and there was when I started the first DHO unit was in Cumberland, and there was also one at Clarence. And
okay.
Then they built the one at the Navan Road.
Yep.
And it eliminated the one at Clarence.
Right.
We moved the stockpiles from Clarence to Cumberland.
Okay. And then eventually from Cumberland to because they closed that. I think it's been torn down. Something else.
There was also one at Alfred.
Oh, okay.
And there was one at Hawkesbury.
All down the road.
So they closed the one in Alfred.
And built the bigger one in Hawkesbury?
Built the bigger one at Hawkesbury.
Okay, cool.
And then the Hawkesbury unit run all the way from Quebec border to Plantagenet. And the one in Cumberland went from Blair Road and Alta Vista on the Queensway, that little piece. When the Queensway ended at Alta Vista.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember that. I do remember it ending at Beckett's Creek.
When I first started, that was,
Okay.
Yeah, that was as far as it went.
Okay. So that predates me remembering or being aware of.
That was you were maybe before you went to school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for those stories.
Yeah.
And again, subscribe or not. And thanks for paying attention.